The older I have gotten, the more and more it's just become clear to me that there's just so much that society has lied to us about. And sometimes I feel like society tells more lies to women than it does any other demographic. In this video, we're going to be unpacking some of those things. These are things that the older that I have gotten, I've just become very resolute in my belief that there's just too many lies. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Dimma here. So today we're going to be talking about something I feel really strongly about. This is something that I feel, or these are things that I feel are very important. And they're things that I've come to realize the older I have gotten. They're all independent ideas, independent thoughts that I have had. And I didn't want to go off doing a video for every single point that I'll be sharing with you guys. So I'm putting everything together here. Depending on how this video goes, if there's a particular point that sparks very serious conversation, maybe I might go deeper into that and give it a video of its own. But in this video, I'm going to be sharing 5 things, okay? 5 things that I've just come to realize, things the world lied to us about. Society lied to us about them. Family sometimes lie to us about these things. And I think it's extremely important, especially for very young women, people who are in their early 20s, to just be aware of some of these things and to understand and to know and to be prepared. Honestly, I wish that I would have watched a video like this in my early 20s. I think it would have given me so much peace. So let's get into it. The first point that I have on my list is this lie that we've been sold, that love languages only matter in the context of romantic relationships. If you've had any conversation with me in the past year, this is actually something that has come up quite a bit, especially when I'm talking about friendship with anybody, okay? It's something that I think needs to be unpacked. I think as women, we spend a lot of time pursuing friendships, maintaining friendships, investing in friendships. And a lot of the time, or sometimes, there's a level of discontent that just pops up. And I think a lot of it happens because of some of the things that society has led us or convinced us should be. I also think that society has also kind of groomed women or convinced women to hold their fellow women by a standard that is much higher than what they hold men to. And I'm going to really get into this point and explain where I'm coming from. Every single time I see or hear the concept of love languages come up, it's always in the context of romantic relationships, never around friendships, never around family, never around work relationships. For those of you who don't know what love languages are, love languages were coined by this guy. I'm going to have his name on the screen. He wrote a whole book around it, and it's become so popular to the point that everywhere on social media you see it. It's also used a lot in therapy when couples are being counseled. Like I told you guys before I got married, when I was doing marriage counseling in church, we were taught about love languages. So I'm basically trying to explain that this is something that is used every single time when it comes to counseling, when it comes to advice for like maintaining relationships with a significant other. I just remember the name of the author. His name is Gary Chapman. His name should have appeared on the screen at this point. But according to him, there are 5 love languages. And these languages focus on all the ways people like to receive love and sometimes give love. There are acts of service, gift giving, quality time, physical touch, and words of affirmation. Now, this advice is very relevant, or the advice that is typically given around these languages is very relevant when it comes to partners. And I agree with all of that. But this also applies to human beings in general. If the whole premise of love languages is that people show and receive love differently, why does that now not flow into relationships that are not romantic? Like, why doesn't it flow into relationships that you have with your friends and family? There are some friends I know who, for them, gift giving means so much. And there are some friends that I know who are very big on words of affirmation. They want you to feel affirmed. They want assurance for themselves as well. There are friends who you just know that when you have something going on, they want to spend time with you. And when you know this about someone, why do you not then prioritize showing up for them in that way? And this goes both ways, because a lot of the time when you see people in conflict, they are going on about what the other person didn't do. And sometimes when you're listening, trying to understand what is going on, you realize that the other person was actually trying. They were doing things for that other person that means so much to them. It might not be what carries more weight to you. And this is not to excuse or to justify people not showing up for you in the ways that you need the most. That is very, very important. But there should also be grace in the way that the conversation happens. Because sometimes you might feel like, oh, maybe what would have mattered to you was the person maybe coming to spend some time with you in that particular stage. But then maybe the person has been on the phone constantly every single time you people had a conversation, affirming certain things about your feelings, assuring you, validating you. Why does that not count? I think that you can always then say, because I'll also touch on this on a later point, you can always tell people how you prefer to be loved at any given situation, but it's also very, very important that there is grace and you are also aware of all the other ways that they've been trying for you, even if it wasn't what you needed. I've noticed that sometimes people give their partners so much grace in this particular area, but when it's a friend, there's almost like this villainism that pops up. The assumption that whatever they didn't give you came from a very calculated place. Sometimes it's not. And if your romantic partner can fall short, someone who you spend so much time with, who you probably live in the same house with, so can your friends. So can your family members. And I think it's important that we carry this understanding into all relationships, not just the romantic ones. So love languages, they matter. Know what they are for your friends. Try to show up for them in that area. And also, irrespective of the fact that maybe their love languages are not the same as yours, be cognizant of when they are trying their best to love you in the way that comes naturally to them. Even if it's not what you need at that particular moment, give grace for them to come to that understanding. Communicate it with them, but always give grace. Because sometimes people they're not missing the mark because they want to. Sometimes they just don't know. Like it's not even occurring to them. Okay? Another point that I think that we've been lied to so thoroughly about by society, by family, is this idea that giving your children what you did not have is the only thing that parenting is about. And sometimes this part of the world, they're even mostly referring to maybe physical things or maybe exposure to certain environments, right? And that is all that parenting is about. I think about this a lot, and it's something that I'm very, very critical about because I'm currently at that stage now where I'm having conversations around children. Like you're thinking about having children, it comes up in conversations that you have with your partner, it comes up in conversations that you have with your friends. You guys are reflecting on the kind of parenting that you had, the way that you were raised. You talk about the way that it's kind of affected or made you the kind of person that you are, and you just realize that there's so much that you have to be intentional about. There's so much that you do not want to not do or overdo. And you guys know that this part of the world, when it comes to saying, oh, make sure that you give your children things that you didn't have, a lot of the times they're referring to very material things. Your whole template, your standard as a parent was to give your children material things that they didn't have, or to give them access to environments that you didn't have as a person. And these are good things sometimes, ensuring that your children don't go without things that you also went without. The problem, however, is that a lot of parents, sometimes especially fathers, in the type of society that I come from, think that once the material thing is provided, their work is done. The emotional aspect of it, the well-being of the child, a lot of things, having a friendship, having a certain type of dynamic, that's the mother's responsibility. Because in their mind, it's like this tunnel vision, like they grow up. And to be honest, a lot of it comes from coming from a place of lack. And you just didn't have certain things that kind of made life a bit difficult. And you kind of feel like, oh, the sum total of everything, the sum total of good parenting would be to make sure that my children don't experience this. But then context is so important. Nuance is also so important. I think that when you work really hard to put your children in rooms that you were not in, something fundamentally changes in terms of what their expectations become from a parent. And you have to bear this in mind. You tried as much as possible to make sure maybe that you got your child into an upper middle class school, the type of school that you didn't go to, and your children are there and let us say you tried really hard to put them there, but then your children, they are there mingling with people, or children of the very upper class or children of the lower upper class, children who some of the things that is a lot of work for you just kind of come easy to them. You have children who are kind of having conversations around so many things, being exposed to things that you were never exposed to, dealing with bullying. I feel like sometimes, depending on the type of school that you went to, I feel like I went to a secondary school where people were bullied for very completely different things than the type of things that I feel like children of the upper middle class, like the kind of things, an upper class that they get bullied for. Sometimes when I talk to my friends and I hear the things that kind of made them feel ashamed or be very conscious when they were much younger, the schools that I went to, these were not things. And then let us say that both our parents had the same start in life. It doesn't make what they are experiencing in this environment that their parents had to put them in, it doesn't make what they are experiencing irrelevant, because sometimes you hear children going through things and then the response is, this is rich people's problem, but that's the environment that you put them in. And children are like sponges, that they absorb so many things. So I'm saying all of this to really, really emphasize that it's important that outside of the material things that you give to a child, it's important that you are aware of where they are in their minds. It's very, very important that you take your time to understand the kind of environment that sometimes you've thrust them into. It's also very, very important that you kind of understand what their perspective is. You also bring social media into the equation, and it's like a double whammy. We just all have to be very conscious. And sometimes I think that parents get really, really upset about this, and they're like, I've given you things that I did not have. You have to be very grateful. And it's not like these children are not grateful. The things is just that they are in an environment where they are feeling things that you did not have the opportunity to feel. And so it's important that it's not dismissed, because that's where issues start from. Mental health is very, very big and important for children who are growing up in this generation. In our parents' generation, what was that? What is a mental health? They don't know what that is. So you have to bear things like this in mind. A lot of millennials will just tell you that they would have done better with better emotional connection with their parents. I think a lot of us can say this. But I also want to speak to millennials very quickly, because I also think that the very opposite, the extreme end or extreme opposite of what I've just described previously, is also very problematic. And it's now being so accommodating with a child to the point that you do not establish boundaries or limits. You do not bring accountability into the picture. And then you have children that boss you around, that tell you to shut up and sit down. We've seen this on social media, throw very massive tantrums, children that grow into people that you cannot control. So I think it's the same thing, because in as much as millennials complain about it, I've kind of seen it gradually start playing out with people in our generation, where they're like, oh, my parents were not emotionally available. I want to be so emotionally available for my children. And then what they do sometimes is spoil their kids. And I'm not even saying this from a very, like, they just spoil children and they raise children who they can't hold accountable, because the children do not listen to whatever they've said. They've not established very strong boundaries. And so I'm saying this, that it's very, very important to always set out to raise children for the kind of environment that they will find themselves in. Your goal should not always to just give them what you didn't have. And this applies to millennials, because you can run into very big issues. So it's a lie that giving your children things that you didn't have automatically just makes you a better parent. There has to be context, there has to be nuance, and you have to be very, very conscious of very specific things when the time comes, so that you don't make a mess of things. The third point I have, the third thing I think that we've been lied to about, is that, you should have made all your lifelong friends by your 20s and 30s. As a full-grown adult, that should be your goal. I see this on social media all the time. There's this quiet message with the way conversations around friendships are typically had, that if you don't build your circle really early, you've somehow missed your chance to do that. And social media has not made things easy with the way they push what friendship circles should look like. I've talked about this in previous videos, where people would ask me questions when I do Q&As, talking about how they feel like, oh, they're not traveling with their friends, they're not doing really aesthetic things with their friends. And sometimes these people have very close friends who are willing to die for them, but maybe they cannot afford to do certain things that social media is telling us now that friendship group should do. And I think that we have to be very, very careful about the kind of messaging we absorb when it comes to what friendships should look like. The fact that you're not traveling to really expensive, exotic destinations with your friends doesn't make them bad friends. It becomes this aspirational image that you hold yourself up against, completely forgetting the friends who are actually present for you, who might not be able to do all those things. But in all the ways human beings need to be propped up, they are there to prop you up. So be very, very conscious and careful. But then the bigger message I have for this point is that people will evolve. There are friends that you made when you were in secondary school. There are friends that you made in university. These friendships would evolve. Sometimes they will. I promise you they will sometimes. And sometimes when they change and when they end, we feel like it's the end of the world. But I want you to look at your parents and look at the older women or older men in your life. Think about their closest friendships. Some of my mom's closest friends are people that she met when she was pregnant. Some of them she met in waiting rooms at the hospital. Some of them she met just by virtue of being a mother to some of her children. And so I say all of this to say you are not late. Some of your very good lifelong enduring friendships are yet to happen. The fact that you did not make those connections in your 20s and 30s, it doesn't mean that the world is about to end. Things also will not always be optical, but you're not behind, and good friendships are still coming. And I promise you, the friendships that you make after you've grown into an adult and you know what your boundaries are and you know what you like and what you don't like. I have some of those friendships right now and I am still connecting with more people, and it's the most beautiful thing. Because some of the things I used to stress about when it comes to friendship in the past, I don't stress about them as much now. These people are mature, sophisticated people. They do not hold you to very unreasonable standards. They always understand that life is happening for you. And these things are still ahead of you. So I'm just saying all of this to tell everybody to please calm down. Good things are coming. Okay. The fourth thing that I think that media, especially books, you see this in romance books, you see this in movies, like they've lied to us about, is that if someone loves you, they should automatically know what to do. I don't believe that. A lot of us were raised on this idea that love means mind reading. Romance especially, the way it's written in books the way it is portrayed sometimes, even in movies, is this beautiful fairy tale where the men always know what to do without no communication. The women also know what to do without no communication. But guys, healthy relationships require a lot of good communication. People can care about you deeply and still not automatically know what you need. People can love you and still make mistakes. Sometimes on social media, I see things like, if I have to tell them, then it doesn't count. And I understand that sentiment, to be honest, in some situations where, let's say you're partnered with someone and you have to tell them that you don't like eating certain things when they should already know. You have to tell them that it's your birthday, so they need to get you something. You have to tell them that you need flowers on Valentine's Day. Like those ones, that's not what I'm talking about here. So please hear me out. If you've continuously shown someone what you like, explained to them how you like to be loved, at some point, there has to be some awareness. I completely agree. And that's not what I am talking about. I'm really stressing this. I'm talking about the very nuanced, very specific things, preferences, details, things that require actual conversation sometimes for someone to know. Let's say someone buys you something and they're excited about it, but you didn't love it. I think that that's actually an opportunity for the relationship to improve. It's a good time to say, I would have preferred it like this. And I think that people, when they love you, they're actually eager to please. Their goal is to maximize your happiness. I don't think that if you love someone, you want to force them to take the things that you like. That's not really how it works. At the end of the day, someone who loves you would ideally want to please you. There is room there to communicate, and have a conversation about how you would have preferred things. If they love you, this is good feedback because it prevents them from making mistakes in the future. You will know that there's a problem when this leads to an argument. This is not where arguments are had. And this applies to both romantic, family, platonic relationships, right? And I also think that it's a bit passive-aggressive, this belief that you have to know something automatically without us realizing it. It's a bit passive-aggressive. You drop hints, you feel let down, and then you forget that hints are actually clues that someone has to stitch together. It doesn't automatically make someone a bad person when maybe they stitch all these clues together and they end up with an image that is very different from what you thought they should have ended up with. Communicate. And I say this to my girlies all the time. You have to be direct when you want something. That's my own belief. Communicate what you want. This applies to all sorts of situations, okay? I think that people who love you would appreciate the fact that you're giving them a map on how to navigate loving you. They would really appreciate it. Final one for me would be this lie that wanting validation means that you are insecure. People often say you should completely outgrow the need for validation by the time you're 30, that a 35-year-old looking for validation is insecure and problematic. I genuinely do not agree. Okay, because at the end of the day, we are social beings. Wanting acknowledgement, wanting appreciation, wanting to feel seen, that is a very normal thing to want. Even wanting empathy, it is a very normal thing to want. The issue, however, is when you rely entirely on external validation to do everything. That's when you have a problem. But the existence of the need itself, that is not a problem. And I really, really want to stress it, because you see people trying to be vulnerable, complaining about different things, both on social media and in real life. They'll be like, chest it. Don't act like, why do you need them to appreciate? Why do you need this? Why do you need that? People who love you should be able to give you these things freely without you looking for it. Like it's it's a very normal need. And this particular one is typically packaged as self-growth advice. But what it actually does, especially for women, is teach us to suppress a very human need. And this unbothered era of social media, this stoicism, the I am untouchable, unmovable, okute, unkume. No. A lot of that is being performed, and I think that it can lead to very, very, very deep loneliness. It also prevents you from tapping into community, accessing community, like just taking advantage of people who are actually present for you, are looking for ways to help you. There's a difference between needing validation to function. That's where it becomes dependency, versus appreciating when the people you love acknowledge you. Those are two different things. And a lot of women are walking around starving for affirmation and calling it healing. Me, I don't believe that. You are allowed to want to be told that you are doing well. I believe this. You are allowed to want to feel loved and seen. You are allowed to say, this thing hurt me, oh. It hurt me. And have someone say back to you, I completely understand why it would. Don't worry, I completely understand. There's nothing wrong with you for needing that. And the right people in your life will give it to you freely. They're not going to hoard it. They will not hoard it from you. And I'm being very serious, because I see it, especially when people are hurt publicly on social media, or there's a conversation going on that is particularly hurtful, or you feel like people have ganged up against you, and you're trying to communicate to people in your immediate circle and be like, I don't really like, and they're like, oh, why would you let what they said get to you in the first place? Or when you've gone through something and then you have people in your circle who do not acknowledge the fact that something really difficult has happened to you, because we are social beings. And so I say to you that it's okay. And if you find that you're surrounded by people who hoard this, who never want to give it to you, who act like you needing it is you being weak, you need to change things up a little bit. I believe so, honestly. So yeah, these are 5 things for me that I genuinely believe we were lied to about, or at least not told the full truth about. I really want to hear from you guys too. What are the lies that were sold to you? What are the lies that you've come to a stage in your life where you're like, wait, it doesn't actually go the way they told me it would though? Drop it in the comments. I genuinely read them and I would love to have a conversation around this. I hope that this was helpful to someone. I'll see you guys in my next one.